So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast, and welcome back again. As I say, it's transfer season. Things never stop. Even though we've signed Boubacar Kamara, there's always so much more that we can learn about him and kind of digest and kind of figure out, and that's why we're here today. We have the wonderful Fintan O Reilly from Total Football Analysis. If you guys don't know what Total Football Analysis is, just type it into the interwebs, look it up. There's some superb stuff there, and you might consider becoming a subscriber on there as well. I use it. I think it's fantastic, and it's my light reading from before I go to bed at night time. So I'm delighted to have Fintan on, and Fintan is going to talk to us today about Boubacar Kamara and some studies he's done on him over the years. So Fintan, delighted to have you.
Brilliant. Thanks a million for having me on. Yeah, looking forward to the chat. I wish I could chat more to people about the football, not just so much writing. So it's a pleasure for me as well.
Well, you're always welcome on here. Anyway, if you've got any nuggets on people we sign them with Aston Villa spreading their web and their net far and wide, you never know. You might get you might be getting a lot of messages from me. I should apologize to you, Fintan, because our intro music is the loudest intro music this side of the equator, and I usually I've turned it down about 1 million times, yet it still keeps on. I don't know what the situation is, but I forgot to mention to you. So if you've tinnitus after this, I do apologize, considering that I forgot to mention it to you in our preamble beforehand. But that's neither here nor there. We do have Boubacar Kamara to talk about. Really, really interesting prospect. And we might just talk a small little bit about him, what you've seen about him, and you've written some articles on him. I suppose on him specifically. And we will get into another aspect of, some of the coaching aspects that have and formational aspects that he's played in. But what's your view on Boubacar Kamara as a player?
So I think it's a fantastic signing. For one, I would have recommended him to any team looking for a holding midfielder in Europe. So I think for you guys, great signing, great recruitment. Even I have a friend of mine, a colleague, and he's a Barcelona fan. And I was saying, if they're looking for someone to come in, either take a few minutes from Busquets as he ages or as a eventual replacement, this is a kind of guy you'd look at, especially with Barca financial problems. Free transfer, very good option. But take the free transfer part out of it, I think he's probably one of the guys you'd look at getting in, considering he was at Marseille. You could probably take the step up from there. They are in the Champions League, but still, I think great signing. So yeah, great player as a holding midfielder. I think he gives you pretty much everything you want in a position that's really difficult to recruit for because it's so demanding. I suppose you could say that about almost any position now. But I think it's such a specific position, especially if you're like a team that wants to play with the ball and everything. You're kind of looking at a guy that can not just break up the play, but also start the attacks. So he does all that. So yeah, I love him as a player, obviously. So yeah.
Excellent. That's great to hear. And it's great to hear that you were thinking that potentially he could be an understudy to somebody of the ilk of Busquets, because I think sometimes when you think about Barcelona, you forget how pivotal that type of player is for them. And look, Sergio Busquets, he's not going to win any style awards, but he's been a top player, and to be honest with you, he's held that midfield together since the likes of Xavi have moved on a couple of years ago. Iniesta has moved on. They've brought in the likes of Frankie de Jong to try and play in that position. They've brought in the likes of even guys like, am I right in saying Miriam Pjanic is in there at the moment as well? They've rattled through some I'm not going to say Frankie de Jong is, but they've brought in players in there to try and harden up that midfield. But Sergio Busquets is the man that they keep on going to. And when you start talking about him in that ilk, and I know they've got Frank Kesse is most likely coming in to play in that midfield, which would be a massive upgrade. But if you're talking about him in that ilk, I think people should get really excited about somebody like Kamara.
For me, I would, yeah. I mean, I'm wary of hyping guys up too much and everything now, but yeah, I would be comfortable enough talking about him like that. Yeah, I'll maybe get onto some weaknesses and stuff in a little bit, but
Of course.
I do think he's that level of player for sure. Like if you looking at a guy who can in this kind of attacking 4-3-3, if you like, that's very popular, where you have pretty much the one midfielder and then two guys who will go. I think he's perfect for that. I do. Whereas I know there's a lot of hype around Tchouaméni and everything. I think it'd be a shame to use Tchouaméni like that, because I feel like he's great as a guy who has this instinct to go forward, and I feel like Rice is similar in that kind of way. You know, the guys who they can play like this, but then they can also go. I like Kamara personally as a guy to play the sitting role. For me, I think that's where he's best. So yeah, I think as a guy who does that, and you have lots of examples of a guy who maybe he's great on the ball in that position, but then he lets the team down defensively, or the opposite, a guy who can break up the play great, but he doesn't always start the attacks very well, won't progress you forward. Kamara does a good job with both. So yeah, from that point of view, I think he's a great player.
Excellent. This is going to be music to the ears of Aston Villa fans, because this year specifically, we have struggled for somebody who can do that, who can do both. We've had Marvelous Nakamba who can break up play, was out for a lot of the season. We've Douglas Luiz who can link play, can't really break up play. So we've had yin and yang there, but we've never had the two of them actually match together. So that's going to be really, really interesting to see if Boubacar Kamara can fulfill that role at such a young age. And as like you said, we're all reluctant. Aston Villa have a history of buying players that should be great and don't turn out to be great. So we're hoping this bucks the trend. You know, it goes back as far as Sasa Churchic back in the mid-90s, even into the likes of Jordan Veretout, Idrissa Gueye. You know, they played with Aston Villa. They played okay, but they really found their feet when they moved on from Aston Villa, and we never reaped the benefits of those players. So, you know, there is a bit of trepidation with a player coming in from the French league, or someone like Kamara coming in here, and Villa not seeing the best from him. But it's great to hear words like that coming from somebody who has studied him and has looked at him. I want to talk to you as well about because a lot of young players, and specifically players in the continent, I think that they get formed very much because they get thrown into battle. So, well, I won't say all of them, but sometimes they get thrown into battle a bit earlier, and they get their chance a bit earlier in leagues that maybe are a bit slower. And I personally think that Ligue 1 translates favorably towards the Premier League in a lot of ways. But what I'm getting at here is that he's had a couple of managers. He's had AVB anyway, number one, and he played a completely different role for AVB than he has under Jorge Sampaoli. And can we discuss a small bit about how much that maybe shaped Boubacar Kamara to the best of your knowledge?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I feel the role under Sampaoli has been great development for him for this kind of a move. And I agree with you as well that Ligue 1 is a pretty good launching pad. I don't want to say it like a launching pad, but Premier League is the strongest league. That's why you can have a team that's not in the Champions League getting a player from a team that is going to play in the Champions League next year like this. It's just the way it is at the moment. It is a good launching pad in that respect. And you have a guy like, there's history of that as well. Rafinha leaving Rennes to go to Leeds, for example. Rennes were in the Champions League at the time, and Rafinha was probably the biggest reason for that. So yeah, you do have this, or Guimaraes and Newcastle, this kind of thing. And these guys do translate quite well. It's a very physical league in that respect. And I suppose if you see a guy like Kamara who can hold his own in the league under AVB at a very young age, it does, in a central position as well, it does say a lot of good stuff, a lot of good signs for translating then to the Premier League. He did play a lot of games in central defence for a short bit of time, more during AVB's tenure at Marseille. But with Sampaoli, it's been more as a holding midfielder in the Sampaoli is a very unique kind of system, but pretty much at the base of a midfield tree or diamond, that kind of idea. And yeah, I would say it's what suits him best. But he's also a guy who's very, very comfortable with dropping during that kind of early possession phase. A big thing with Sampaoli is he likes to have one extra guy in the first line versus the opposition's attack. So basically, if you're playing a 4-4-2, he wants to have three guys in that first line to outnumber the two forwards. And so Kamara is a guy who's learned basically, I mean, if it's what the coach wants from him as well, if you have 2v2, I might drop here, help the guys out a little bit, give them that extra bit of help to play through the lines, that kind of way. If he's not needed, go up a little bit, advance. He's good at playing that role, but he is very comfortable with dropping deep during that early phase, splitting the centre backs and kind of launching attacks from there.
Excellent. I once again, listen, if I was to write the holy grail of what we were looking for in a player to come in to help us, because we're just so powder puffed through the middle, really are. And specifically because our fullbacks go so far forward, like Luke Dean sometimes might as well put a picnic table at the opposition corner flag. Like he's always up there. And Matty Cash has popped up around the box as well. So to have somebody who can do that and has positionally disciplined, obviously he was a centre half previously in a previous life, nearly at this stage when he first broke onto the scene, and he slotted. So to have somebody like that is positionally adept or positionally aware to sniff out the danger and maybe pull back into that back three is fantastic. As a pivot player, is that somewhere where he's gotten better and better under Sampaoli to be able to take that ball, because he's a workhorse when you look at the amount of touches that he has during the games and the amount of passes he gets through? Yes,
absolutely. Sampaoli has helped a lot with that, and I think anyway. And in terms of getting on the ball, often it's very tempting to look at a guy like that and just look at the passes and what he does with the ball. But for me, what's better with Kamara is what he does just before receiving. He's great at finding space, offering options. And I think that's probably the most important thing in that kind of position, is you don't want to leave the centre backs hanging. You don't want to leave them just sitting there and, okay, no options. What do we do? He's great at giving options like that. And I think that's the most impressive thing about him. He's good at subtly kind of leaving when a player presses and he's behind that and you can't pass to him. That's what you'd call like being in their cover shadow. He's great at leaving the cover shadow and kind of just freeing himself up, giving the teammates options, not necessarily always moving forward. The one thing I would say with Kamara, well, one of the things I'd say with Kamara, the odd time I feel like he's a little bit too conservative with the first touch. And you'd say, wow, how could you be too conservative? At least you're protecting it. But then if you kind of turn and you're maybe facing this way when you're trying to face this way, maybe you need an extra touch, or maybe you play it a bit too soon. And then the guy who takes it next, he needs to take a negative touch and you end up going back. Whereas if you're a bit bolder and you have it, okay, now I can be bold, or now I should be more conservative, he can nail that down a little bit more. Because if you are a bit bolder, then when you can be, it's easier to get forward quicker. And that's an area he can improve a little bit. But yeah, I think in general, in terms of freeing himself up, no problem. He's great at making himself available, which is good.
Brilliant. Excellent. And I think, I suppose that kind of overcautiousness might be just like you often hear of the exuberance of youth, but also I suppose when you're a born bred defender, I suppose really the exuberance is beaten out of you pretty quickly, I think, in professional football. And it could just be I suppose the safety of youth as well. The fact that he's like, I'm not going to be the guy who's going to make the mistake here. And then maybe as time comes on and he becomes more of a leader in the team, is what we would hope he would be. Like somebody to turn around and to turn down Champions League football at 22, back themselves to earn big cash. Because look, we're not stupid. He's earning big cash at Villa. Like that's why he's there. And to think that he can turn them from a 14th place team into potential European team, European chasers, learn under Steven Gerrard, for someone to back himself to change that early in his career, not having an international background about him. Now, what I mean by senior, now he has a senior call-up, will most likely be capped over the next few days, I would imagine, prior to the World Cup. But that shows a level of leadership, and as I say, it shows a level of potential growth, that maybe he might become a bit more confident in himself as he goes as he grows and as he gets older. You mentioned Tchouaméni recently, or there a moment ago as well, and like it's frightening how many good midfielders are coming through the French system at the moment. You've got Kamara, as we said, you've got Tchouaméni, you've got Camavinga. I'm even looking at the under-17s today, and there's a guy called Emery. I can't remember I can never remember his full name. It's Emery from Paris Saint-Germain, 16 years of age. Oh my God, is all I have to say. Is this guy, I'm going to call it now, this guy's going to be the best midfielder in the world. And he's a defensive midfielder, and
Yeah.
everybody will be looking for him. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is, obviously, I don't want you to rank the three guys: Camavinga, Tchouaméni, and Kamara. But do you think the three of them could perform healthily in the same midfield for France, or are they very samey? And the reason I'm getting at this is, could this limit his international prospects as he gets older?
Sure. If you wanted to, as you say, like there's so many options with France that you could kind of make your whoever the coach is your ideal midfield in some way or another. If you wanted to fit the three in, I feel you could. I'd probably put Kamara sitting and the other two in front of him, and it'd probably be quite a strong midfield. Or I do think Tchouaméni's best in kind of like in a double pivot, like where one goes forward, one stays back, because he's that kind of player for me. But if you would play him as an 8 with someone behind him, he'd be grand as well. But yeah, I think with France, with French players, you're definitely always looking at so much competition and everything. And then I suppose, does that kind of spur a guy on and get him to up the level a little bit more, or does it kind of just create that I'll relax a bit? I don't know. But yeah, it could limit him a bit. But I feel like Kamara does probably offer something a little bit different in terms of for me, this kind of pure 6. For me, I would say I think he's good in that kind of role.
Yeah, as I say, because I've throttled between the difference. Yes, he can play in an 8, he can play in a 6. Where Steven Gerrard is going to want to play him is, it was really funny last season, Steven Gerrard, when Nakamba was in there, because of Nakamba's limitations with the ball at his feet, he was played as somebody who was, he did it as best he could, but he's a limited frame. You know, he's not the most physical person. He's not the most intimidating person in there. And he dropped between the two centre halves, and we looked a lot better. He did that against Liverpool in the 2 games he played against them. He did that against Man City, and you know, Gerrard had come in and started playing that way, and we looked a lot more solid that way. And then when he was out of the team, we had Douglas Luiz, and we played that midfield a small bit flatter, but we were very much, we were almost being held at ransom at whether Douglas Luiz woke up in the morning and decided he was going to be disciplined in his positioning. And he tried, and I'm not giving a crack at him, but he's just not that player that can do that can slot in between the 2 centre halves anymore. And as I say, if this guy comes in and is able to do that and use his natural ability to do so, I think we're immediately a more tactically diverse team, and immediately a harder prospect to break down. And to be honest with you, I would imagine that he probably won't be the only 6 or pseudo 6 to come into this team. I think over the off season. And you know, as I say, you love talking about players on the continent. We may be getting you back on to talk some more about other people as they do come through the doors, should they be people that you wish to talk about. That's but brilliant. I suppose just any kind of closing kind of words on Kamara. Is there anything that I suppose he's exit from Marseille? Do you know, from following that a small bit closer, do you know, was it acrimonious? Do you know, from that point of view, was there anything is there any kind of closing kind of comments that you would have? You mentioned that there's some weaknesses to his game as well. Anything like that you want people to know about?
Sure. So in terms of the exit, so for me, it's kind of like the way it's going with players looking for the free transfer and just kind of bumping up the signing on fee and wages rather than the transfer fee. I think it's more just to that. I think we'll see a lot more of it. In terms of, I don't know so much about behind the scenes goings on or anything like that, but yeah. I would say it just seems to be more like a personal decision the way it was going the whole time. I'm sure Marseille would have loved to have held on to him because, again, it's a really tough position to recruit for, and I'm pretty sure Marseille have issues with signing players at the moment anyway, but it's not like they can slot Guendouzi in there. He's been so much better higher up.
Yes, which has been a revelation for them. Yeah,
really has. Yes,
considering they nearly burnt down their training ground when they bought him and sold Sanson.
Exactly. That's it.
We were nearly responsible for an arson attack there because they sold Sanson to us. But sorry, I cut you off.
You're grand. Don't worry. I feel a big thing with Kamara under Sampaoli that's helped him has been, of course, when a team defends together, defends more compact, it makes everyone look better. When you have guys exposed, they look like donkeys. But under AVB, the odd time, and more often, I would say, he was kind of exposed in the holding midfield role. And when you said about the midfield being a bit lightweight, that kind of set alarm bells ringing a little bit, because if you leave him there on his own, it's a lot of ground to cover, and he can get a little bit dragged away. He can be quite aggressive. Now, he doesn't press like a nutter, but when he does commit, he commits. And a big thing with Sampaoli has been the 2/8s in front of him are aware of that. They drop back, they cover in like that. So if he leaves here and goes, the two guys drop in like this to look out for him. He needs that little bit of protection, even if it's not two, but one, just to kind of watch out. Okay, he's gone. I need to drop in, because that will happen. And a big thing as well that teams did try to expose with him the odd time is, I can't remember the specific game, but there was some time where maybe it was a 10 pushing up and a forward dropping, or maybe it was two guys dropping, but two at once would drop either side of him and kind of leave him a bit frazzled. So he can get, if you leave him there on his own, exposed. But it shouldn't really happen if the team is defending in a compact kind of way, which will probably happen when you reach that stage of the pitch anyway. But it's one thing I remember a lot about Kamara is, if he's left there on his own, he can't cover everything. But not so much a weakness for him, I guess, so much as it is a weakness for Marseille at the time.
A tactical failing on the team.
Yeah.
You know what? I think from that point of view, obviously, like John McGinn is, I can just imagine John McGinn is just running somewhere at the moment, because that's what he does. You just can't tire him out. And Jacob Ramsey has been really good. And I mentioned at the start that our fullbacks live in the opposition's half. So a lot of the covering that would have to be done would be John McGinn might filter back, or Ramsey might filter back as well. So they've had lots of practice of covering off those half spaces to kind of help the base of that midfield three. And I think the biggest issue there was sometimes they were covering off the half spaces, but Douglas Luiz was he just. And I feel like I'm going in 2-footed in him the whole time whenever I mention him, but it's just not his position. His position is a number 8. He wants to be up further. He wants to have that bit more fluidity within his game, as opposed to be that disciplined. So from that point of view, I think we've got the players that can certainly help him, out there. And as I say, but obviously, like we've seen it firsthand, Douglas Luiz has been vilified, but at parts he's been completely exposed at times this season, until we got things right, just because his positional now in that 6th position is getting, it's not what it was when Dean Smith was here, when we basically camped out in the edge of our area. As we've started to become a bit more attacking, bringing in the likes of Coutinho, Buendia, playing 2 strikers at times, we've had to push out a small bit more, and we've left that area a small bit exposed. But I think it's more so the fact that, we need a dedicated 6 in there, and Douglas Luiz can be moved forward and have a much more fluid role within the team. Gavin, our Fintan, should I say, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks a million for having me on.
I really appreciate it. As I say, guys, I'm going to link to the 2 articles the Fintan referenced there, with regards to Boubacar Kamara and the Sampaoli tactics as well. I'm going to link to them. Total Football Analysis is who Fintan writes for. Does some really great stuff there. Please check out these articles. They're available. They're open. They're open source to everybody. You can see them. There are other articles and magazines that Total Football Analysis do that are behind the paywall as well. If that is your bag, like it is mine, I spend my time reading those and getting insight on a lot of players and a lot of tactical kind of analysis that they do as well. This is not the sponsored podcast, in case anyone thinks it is. I just really like Total Football Analysis. That's how I got to know Fintan, and that's how that's why he's ended up on the podcast today. But I really thank you so much for popping on. I really appreciate it. And where can people find your stuff anywhere else, or where's probably the best place to find you?
Pretty much Total Football Analysis, and then if you have Twitter, you feel free to give me a follow at Fintan, and then just football after that, Fintan Football. I'm not so active on there, but if I write that, and I'll throw it up on there as well. So that's it.
Excellent, excellent, absolutely, and it'd be well worth giving Fintan a follow on that. So, as I say, once again, thank you so much for your time. For everybody, thank you so much for watching this. Please give this a thumbs up on YouTube. Please like it in the audio podcast and subscribe to the audio podcast as well. Really appreciate everything you do to help us get our name out there and to drive the podcast forward. This has been a fantastic conversation. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their day or their weekend or whenever you're listening to this. Until we see you again next time, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the villa.